So, it's that time of year. I'm at Conservative Party conference with a bit of a twist this time because A, this lot have crashed out of office, humiliating electoral performance, and B, they wouldn't let me in. Normally, I get a pass. 2015 onwards, it's become a kind of annual tradition, I would say. Me running around after Tory ministers, special advisors, rugby tackling me and chatting to delegates about all things Conservative. They wouldn't let me in this year. They sent me, I'm emailing to inform you that approval has not been granted by the Conservative Party, and as such, your application has been unsuccessful. Well, I'm not bitter. I actually am a bit bitter about it because we're outside, we're cold and miserable, but we're still going to do our jobs because we're professionals. So we're going to ask the great and the good of the Tories, which is, why did they lose? Have they got a sense of what they need to do to turn around their disastrous fortunes? What's their vision for the country? Let's go and talk to some Tories. How are you feeling? What's your mood?
Optimistic.
It's really positive.
Upbeat. Great.
I'm really excited.
Are you feeling upbeat?
No.
When you come, you give me stress, you do.
Oh dear.
Almost angina attack.
They banned you.
As soon as they lose an election?
I don't know why they're not letting you in.
Why did the Tories lose so badly?
Because I think we failed on the basic things I think you expect a Conservative government to do. Low taxes, migration control, tight squeeze on public spending. We just did things that I don't think that you associate with Conservatives or conservatism.
Why did they lose?
That's a really good question, and lots of people have got really different views, but I guess, I don't know, people wanted a change and they voted for the opposite of what was in power, and now they've got something very similar.
What went wrong? What did you get wrong?
I think we lost sight of where we needed to be. If we talk about who the Conservative Party should be, it should be a party of low tax and small government.
We promised to control illegal immigration. We promised that people would have lower taxes. We promised that queues would go down in the NHS. And for one reason or another, we didn't do it. If you don't keep your promises, you get punished.
The mood, I think, is one of expectation. I mean, we've just suffered a very heavy defeat, and we need to rebuild the party. I think the big question is going to be how that gets rebuilt, and around whether it's centre ground or moving further to the right, which I would regret. Mind you, the Labour Party has already started to write its own suicide note, and it's only been in office for 10 weeks. So it could well be a one-term parliament for the Labour Party, in which case we've got to get our act together pretty quick in order to be a credible and successful force again in the minds of the British public. And the Conservative Party, you've got to remember, notwithstanding the last defeat, is still the most successful political party in the whole history of European politics.
You have to remember the Conservative Party is the most successful political party in the world. We had a shocking defeat 100 years ago, came roaring back. And I know times are different.
Oh yeah, but the Liberals also suffered a terrible defeat and then didn't come roaring back.
No.
They used to be one of the two main parties, didn't they?
They did, but they were supplanted by Labour.
What about Reform? Because they supplant you.
No, because they don't have very many policies. They've got one or two things, and they're still a they're still a party of protest.
You don't want Nigel Farage to be your leader?
No, thank you very much. No.
Oh, not a fan?
Not particularly, no.
He's got charisma, hasn't he?
It takes more than charisma. There are plenty of people whose names I won't mention in past history who had charisma and were truly appalling characters.
I think we know where we're going with that one. After a while, do you think people just got fed up of stagnating and falling living standards?
I think but it wasn't and that wasn't the fault of the Conservative Party. Look more broadly across Europe.
They definitely did the cutting. Yeah, that was them.
I mean, they did the cutting, but they can only play with what they're given. And if you look across the worldwide economy, it's not like they had really like a great arsenal of stuff to play with.
Well, I mean, interest rates were in terms of borrowing rates, were very low. Under Cameron and Osborne, they could have borrowed to invest in, and instead they didn't wipe out the deficit as they said they would. Yeah. And we have collapsing public services. It's not worked out that well.
I mean, you've got to look broadly, right? You can only play with what revenue's being brought in, right?
But isn't the problem, I would say, that we've got an economic model in this country? I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, well, you know, what did the Tories inherit? But 14 years of living standards stagnating to the point where people were, on average, barely better off than they were in 2010. I mean, that's kind of absurd. I mean, you can't just say that's Labour's fault.
Well, yeah, but it's look. So the neoliberal economic system, which we all live under,
Comrade, thank you.
right? Yeah. It isn't a Tory invention, is it?
No, I agree with you. So I personally wouldn't just critique the Tories. I think they just embedded the worst element.
Blair, you take it back to Blair. I mean,
Thatcher.
But I mean, the problem, right? I think there's a lot of wastage in public services, aren't there?
People will say it's like a
So how many consultants do you need, though? Like, come on.
Well, that's what happens if we privatise things. Then they end up having loads of private consultants charging rip-off rates. But that's more neoliberalism, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that system of taking, what's the word for it? It's like quangoisation, isn't it?
Ooh.
Quangoisation, where you basically...
Early on a Sunday for these sorts of work.
Your politician takes something they're responsible for, they go, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore, we're going to outsource it to these guys. Like, they're going to run it. But this isn't just one party doing this. This is a big problem that I think needs addressing.
Finally, who do you want to be leader?
I don't care.
But I don't think that we deserved to win.
We got kicked out of office for a reason.
Party that had lost the trust of the British people. I think we failed to deliver for the British people.
4 candidates, 1 message. It's time to change.
As a Conservative, it's really nice having an option of a number of leadership candidates who they've all got really good points. And I didn't feel that with the last leadership. I just feel that maybe we needed to lose in order to have a reset. And I think that's what we're going to get. So it's great to have that sort of positive vibe about let's get back to what do we believe in, not just promising this and doing this.
Because obviously we've got our 4 candidates. Personally think at the moment Robert Jenrick's our best choice. But it's, you know, the platform is out there for the 4 of them to put their pitch across to us.
I think that one of the problems we have right now is that there is too much of government getting involved in everything. Mm-hmm. People aren't happy at the moment with what government does. Asking the government to do more is not the answer. This is one of the principles that I'm fighting this leadership contest on.
But what about things like maternity pay? I mean, we have one of the lowest rates in the OECD of maternity pay in this country. Changing that would probably help people make better decisions around family. Do you think we've got the right level of maternity pay at the moment?
So maternity pay varies depending on who you work for, but it is a function, where it's statutory maternity pay, it is a function of tax. Tax comes from people who are working. We're taking from one group of people and giving to another. This, in my view, is excessive. Businesses are closing. Businesses are not starting in the UK because they say that the burden of regulation is too high.
So maternity pay is excessive?
I think it's gone too far the other way in terms of general business regulation. We need to allow businesses, especially small businesses, to make more of their own decisions.
After a big election defeat, do you think the one big policy coming out of conference is Kemi Badenoch saying maternity pay has gone too far is really the way the Tories need to win back support?
Well, to throw that back at you, I hadn't heard that, so no.
Do you agree with her? Do you think maternity pay is going too far as a priority?
So I think what you've done there is stopped a woman to ask me that question without realising that I don't have any children.
I'm not asking. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. I'm just saying that's the big policy here. Conservative Party.
Well, I disagree that it is her big policy, actually.
Well, that's what she talks about today. What's the other big policy?
Well, I think the whole point of Kemi's platform is the fact that if you bark out policies when you are fighting to be leader of the opposition, rather than look at where we are, you know, this isn't about tactics. This is about strategy. I think as a woman, it's really important that you don't have actually, as a worker, it's really important you don't have rights that actually stop you being employed.
People hear the Tories talking about workers having too many rights, when actually we've got some of the worst rights compared to many Western countries.
It's not a case of too many rights, it's about getting an equilibrium between employment and business, because what rights do you have if you're not a worker? That to me is really important.
We don't have high unemployment. Do you think maternity pay is stopping people getting work?
No, we have quite high levels of unemployment, but we also have quite high levels of worklessness. And if you actually have a look at the sort of the growth strategy here, I think what businesses are doing is they're really quite worried about the budget. What's going to come in? What's CGT going to be? Is my NI for employers going up? You know, all those kinds of things. I want to look at the bigger picture here. I also want to keep a laser-like focus on what the government are doing, and I'm not really going to get pinned down on one policy or another. It was absolutely lovely to chat to you. Have fun talking to other people.
Thank you. How you?
Why did you pick me? Because I got a bow tie.
Yes.
And I'm stereotypical.
Yes.
And yet no one else here wears bow ties.
Are you a Conservative?
Yes, I am.
Was my first impression correct?
Yeah.
It is. Look, it's fair to say, not many people who aren't Conservatives dress like this.
Correct.
Why?
Because we're old.
No, it's not. You say that. I know people who are like 18, 19-year-olds and they dress like this if they're Conservative. What's going on?
I don't know. I think it's just the way you grow up. With I suppose you come from school. You've always been wearing shirts and ties at school. You go into business. You're always wearing a shirt and tie in business. It's just your clothing wardrobe, isn't it?
I'm in no position to speak. GQ named me the 9th worst dressed man in Britain in 2017. Why did the Tories get so battered?
Why did they get so battered? They lost sight of who we are.
Which is what?
Well, generally Conservative. We're low tax, and we also had a problem with leadership. I think there was a lot of backstabbing. Everyone was infighting, and people always get turned off by that infighting and backstabbing, and losing direction of what we originally intended to do.
Do you think a lot of people think the Tories in the electorate, they think cruel, appeal to the darker sides of the human character, greed, selfishness, bigotry?
No, I don't think that. No, actually, I'd say probably you'll find more Tories in more charity organisations than you will anyone else. I think generally as a bunch of people, we're actually more generous and more caring of the people around us. There's always going to be the odd person, but generally I find that most people I meet that are Tories are very much interested in the welfare of everyone else's humanity. And
is that why the Tories like to cut the welfare budget and public services, though? That's what people point to.
Yeah, I know, that's what they point to. And it's a shame that they do point to that, because actually it's more about making people get up off their feet and earning their daily crust, so that we don't waste money on those people that are scroungers and put that money into people that deserve that money.
It's that kind of word, using the term scrounger. I mean, people listen to that and think it's a Conservative talking about often very vulnerable people in society for whom life is very hard, and using very pejorative terms like scrounger.
That's what I said. We see them doing it. We see our employees twisting and turning and grabbing things that they shouldn't be grabbing.
What do you mean? What are they grabbing, your employees?
Well, they're grabbing extra benefits and they're working the system, and they talk about their friends that are working the system.
What do you mean, working the system? What are they telling you? Because it seems surprising if they're just outright saying, yeah, we're here milking the system. What are they claiming?
The first one is, we all know small traders that ask for cash payments.
Right, but that's nothing to do with benefit claimants.
Yeah, it is, because quite often those small traders are actually, their spouse is claiming benefits for their children and various other things like that.
Do you have any basic statistics about this?
No, I don't have the statistics. I only have my own experiences to go by.
It just seems like anecdote, and the plural of anecdotes and data.
No, it's not anecdotal. It's my own experiences. I've been in business 30 odd years.
How many £1 billion worth of benefits are unclaimed a year?
I couldn't tell you. I don't have
21 billion, and about 1.2 billion is lost to benefit fraud. So benefit evasion, people not claiming benefits they're entitled to, is a much bigger problem than people taking benefits they're not entitled to.
But we've spent a huge amount of time talking about benefits and so on, but there's so many other things, only other aspects to being a Conservative, isn't there? In trying to make our businesses grow so that we employ more staff, so that we grow our businesses, so we get better, so we get more income, so we spend more locally, and we do all our stuff.
What I hope from this conference is that we're going to see an advocacy of Conservative values, which I would take to be law and order, which I would take to be a support of the family, which I would take to be a support of Britain, and something which prioritises Britain in the world, not necessarily closed off from the world, but something that's going to further the common good for people who are British as part of the global community. So that's what I'm looking for. And I think that there are plenty of candidates there who have their distinct ideas of how that would work. I'm kind of torn between Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch. I'd like to see what their ideas are, what actually is the clear clear blue water between them, because at the moment they seem both very, very similar in many ways. So we'll see.
Okay, and just finally, do you think voters need to hear more of what the Tories got wrong and a bit of humility? Do you think that's what is kind of missing, maybe?
Yeah, I do. I do think they need to actually say where they went wrong. I think they did let down the voters, the Conservative voters, and we need to look at what they're going to change in order to get back into power.
Do you think that a Tory party led by you would have done better than a Tory party led by Rishi Sunak at the last election?
Yes, I do.
She was elected on her policies and her strength. She's just shown she has no strength.
Oh dear. I do remember you.
Yeah. You put me on your Facebook thing when I told you correctly that Liz Truss was gone.
Yes, you remember. Yeah. Remember this?
Yeah, I was so angry.
Yeah. So how do you feel about Liz Truss now?
She's great. I mean, sorry. Her mistake was that she had no balls. That was it. She should have told them what to do, because exactly what we all said would happen had happened, and the Tories got kicked to hell in the last election.
So she should have stuck it out, Liz Truss?
Absolutely. The only chance we had.
Really?
Yeah, because Sunak was predicted and expected to do exactly what he did, and he lost. That's it.
But, I mean, if Liz Truss had stayed on, it would have got even worse, because the reason...
Hold on. In what sense? Why is that?
Because she crashed the economy with her policies, which were...
No. Not one single Liz Truss policy was enacted, OK? And if you want to look at the numbers, you'll see that the euro and the yen performed worse during that time, and unless you really think that Trussonomics could really affect both the European Union and Japan...
The Bank of England had to take emergency action.
It had to take emergency action, why? Which would have lasted, what, a day?
Because of the massive financial instability.
It was a hike in US interest rates.
Right. Okay.
It was unexpected. That's it.
So you don't think it was anything to do with Liz Truss's policies?
No, the policies are brilliant, and they've now been proved correct.
How have they been proved correct?
Because by the Rishi Sunak policies, we've ended up in a worse position than we would have done had we done Liz Truss policies.
Really? Do you think so? Do you think, basically, if Liz Truss had just rode out...
I may not have noticed, but Mr Sunak lost decisively.
But one of the main reasons not to let him off the hook, one of the reasons he lost is because when Liz Truss happened, most voters decided whatever the Tories did or said, they were not going to listen.
I thought of you as a Rishi fan.
Not a Rishi fan, but there's no...
That guy had one job.
Right.
Everybody knew what to do, and he insisted on doing nothing.
But people were so angry about Liz Truss that whoever...
Who was angry? I certainly wasn't angry. I was angry about that she left.
The British voters. The electorate. The electorate were angry with Liz Truss.
No. The electorate did not have the chance to vote on Liz Truss. They voted on Mr Sunak.
No, but the polling, if you look at Tory polling, it collapses because of Liz Truss, and then it never recovered.
It collapsed with Boris Johnson, but that was all midterm stuff.
It went down under Boris Johnson. Yeah. Under Liz Truss, the polling collapsed. That's when the Tories went down to about 20%.
Disagree.
That's what the polling shows. She was less. But do you know how?
Did they fall as much as Mrs Thatcher did when she had her things? Not at all.
Liz Truss.
I'm going to do that.
Really?
We're getting it.
All right. Why did the Tories get battered?
Not in Bedford.
Well, OK. We've clung on to Bedford.
Yes, indeed we did. We clung on to the majority in Bedford and to North East Bedfordshire and all those sort of places. So.
Sure, but you got the lowest share of the vote since the universal franchise. Which is bad.
It probably is bad, but I should imagine there's an awful lot of people with buyer's regret about now.
Yeah, but I mean, why do you think you lost, though? Do you not think that a lot of people thought the country was in a state after 14 years of Tory rule, didn't they?
I should imagine after a couple of months of Labour rule, they're glad that they're in power.
Is this literally going to be the Tory? It'll just be like, yeah, we're rubbish, but they're more rubbish. Is that the pitch?
Well, you see, it all depends on who you interview as they come in. The lower down you are, the more happy and cheerful, those that have actually got to make the decisions and lead the party, they've got a more serious job.
Well, just a couple of things finally on that. Kemi Badenoch, she's said that maternity pay has gone too far. That's her big pitch. Do you agree with that?
Well, Having had 4 children, maternity pay's not high enough, but there we go. But I don't have the agony and the trouble of it. I go to work and bugger off, so, leave them to it. So,
But is it not a bit frightening that that's her big policy pitch?
let's see what she says, because she's a really good speaker.
Well, she said it.
Yeah. Let's see what she says in the speeches, because she's a really good speaker, and it's early days in the conference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sunday evening, good time for a quote from, fat councillor from Bedford. Right.
If Labour conference didn't feel like a party that had just had a landslide victory, Tory conference didn't feel like a party that just suffered a shattering landslide defeat. And there's a big difference, actually. While Labour got a landslide in seats based on not a big share of the vote, the Tories got crushed objectively on every measure. 121 seats, 23.7% of the vote, a battering, their worst showing in the history of the universal franchise. But you heard that delusion from so many of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. People just wanted a change, as though it wasn't to do with the unprecedented squeeze in living standards, collapsing public services, all the multiple crises, the turmoil, unprecedented post-war turmoil this country's had. That wasn't something which a lot of them had come to terms with. And a lot of them were just going, well, Labour are rubbish now, without having to have any sense of dealing with their own disastrous record. That said, you can't write this lot off, because as some of them were keen to note to me, the Tories are the most successful electoral force on the face of the earth. And even though it's tempting for me to just go, well, that's a crutch, just Labour's terrible and we don't have to think about our own grievous problems, that is a way back for them. You could see a kind of reformed Tory alliance, which, if it all falls apart for Labour and the left doesn't get their act together, well, you could see a way back for them. I wouldn't rule this lot out. I'd love to, but you can't. And despite the delusion, despite the total lack of humility, well, we'll be at conference, Tory conference, whether they give us a pass or not in the years to come. But my fear is the British right could come roaring back in its most extreme form yet, and we're seeing that all over the Western world. Please like and subscribe, do leave your thoughts, your comments. Help keep the show on the road at patreon.com/OwenJazz84. Listen to the podcast. I'll speak to you soon.